conversation, the NPA spokesperson Mthunzi Mhaga, NPA spokesperson Mthunzi Mhaga. Mr. Mhaga, good evening to you, and thank you so much for your time then tonight. Oh, apologies for that. I understand it's Mthunzi Mhaga. Mr. Mhaga, good evening. Long time no chat. Great to see you back at the NPA.
That's why you think I'm my little brother Mthunzi now.
Apologies for that. Advocate Mhaga, we're dealing with a very difficult situation right now. Talk to me about the approach of the NPA. Every minute we're hearing about an increasing number of people that are being arrested, but that number doesn't represent or reflect those that have been part of the looting that has taken place over the last couple of days. So how is the NPA going to be approaching the prosecution of those that the police have taken into custody?
Of importance, Kathy, is the fact that we are unleashing our prosecutorial machinery. Obviously, that entails bringing in and allocating these cases to experienced prosecutors who have dealt with cases of this nature before. They will be working in collaboration with law enforcement in order to prioritize these cases. Obviously, we are seeking swift justice, as you had seen in the past when we were dealing with 2010 World Cup special courts. But I think I need to also mention that some of these people are very poor and they may not be able to have legal representation. We have then liaised with Legal Aid South Africa so that we get them legal representation, so that those that are willing to plead guilty, we can do so swiftly without any delays. We are also aware, Kathy, that there are most of them will be in custody. And then there is an issue of bail. That decision will be taken by the prosecutors on the ground after evaluating each case and looking at the facts, whether the person is a flight risk, whether the person has previous convictions, whether a person has pending cases. We'll obviously evaluate cases, and some will be released on bail so that you ease the pressure on the correctional services side.
The complexity of the situation, Mr. Mhaga, comes in from the fact that a lot of those that you have taken into custody were taking advantage of a situation that was allowed to happen. And so you have hundreds of people from different communities that basically were able to gain access to, whether it's shopping malls, whether it's factories, that they should ordinarily not have been able to access. So how are you going to balance that? Because somebody will say, well, yes, I was there, but I wasn't the only one.
Kathy, there is a principle called common purpose. The unfortunate part of it is that you will find yourself inside a shop, even if you are not doing anything. But if the person next to you had broken into the shop and you entered the shop and he takes some items and will obviously be charged with theft, you by association will have to be charged with theft, housebreaking, malicious injury to property, if there's a burning of the building or any structure, with arson. That's the unfortunate part of it. And that's part of the investigative process that is being undertaken by law enforcement. And I must also indicate, Kate, that these cases are not going to be very difficult, as some people may think so, because the active citizenry has helped, because people have been apprehended by members of the community and they've been handed over to law enforcement. So part of our case will be based on statements that we'll obtain from members of the community who witnessed and apprehended these culprits and the law enforcement officials. And with that, we'll present a formidable case before the court and obviously meticulously prosecute the cases for a conviction.
What are the charges? What are the charges that people are likely to face?
They will range from public violence, incitement to commit public violence, arson, where they burn property, malicious injury to property, where they break or damage and break into shops. And then there will be theft, where you steal items from the shop, and contravention of the Disaster Management Act as well. There are instances where people use weapons to dispossess others of the property. In that case, robbery will also be a charge that will be preferred against that person.
Mr. Mhaga, one of the things that at least the analysts, the sociologists, the anthropologists who are watching the situation a huge chunk of the analysis has gone to the fact that the reason why we have seen the kind of responses from communities is the deep poverty, the deep inequality that has created the kind of breeding ground for people who are desperate and see an opportunity of being able to improve their lives and get access to food or whatever else it might be. Is that a consideration of the National Prosecuting Authority at all? And to what extent do the steps that you take now possibly venture into the ground of criminalizing poverty, criminalizing inequality? And I know that it's a complex thing that I'm asking you here.
Kathy, we cannot allow the rule of law to be compromised. We cannot allow the administration of justice to be compromised merely because people are poor or are unemployed. There is just no excuse for the acts of violence and acts of incitement to commit violence, arson, theft, and all these offenses that have been preferred against these people. For the fact that they've committed these offenses, unfortunately, the full might of the law will have to play its course. We can't excuse them because of poverty and unemployment. That's the unfortunate part of it.
Does the NPA at all believe that there are others who perhaps are behind this violence that will also be brought to book?
We have been informed by law enforcement that investigations into instigators of these crimes are underway, and that process cannot be compromised by ventilating it through the public forum like the media right now. But we are aware that there are investigations at an advanced stage to bring those culprits to book.
As it stands, are you concerned about these arrests and what they might do in terms of continuing to ignite the fires within communities? Because eventually there will be nothing left to steal and there will be a moving target. So the next point of protest will be around those that have been taken into custody. And we've seen this before in different types of protests in this country.
We hope that these arrests and prosecution thereafter will act as a deterrent, Kathy. We hope that people will see now that the full might of the law is being exerted on them. So we are hoping that it will be a deterrent.
In terms of the communication that you have with the police, and you speak about upholding the rule of law, the police have not been effective in upholding the rule of law. Are you at all then going to be considering the culpability of our security cluster in allowing the situation to be what it has become today?
We have about 1,234 people that have been arrested. Tomorrow, 87 of them are appearing before the Randburg Magistrate Court on a number of offenses. Now, I do not think that the police have failed if they've been able to effect arrest of so many people. You can have your view on their failures here and then, but I don't think they have failed because of the number of people that have been arrested.
How has this violence affected the functioning, in particular, of the courts overall, Mr. Mhaga? Do you have a sense of that?
I do not have a statistical account of courts that have been affected. We have not had any reports of people that have been unable to access the courts because of these disruptions.
We've been told that in some areas, in particular in KZN, police were told to stop arresting people because there simply wasn't enough capacity to hold them in custody once they had been arrested. How does this affect the ability, as you're saying, of the NPA to uphold the rule of law?
Kathy, we are the prosecutorial component in the criminal justice system. We can only process through the court system accused people that appear before us after having been arrested. I am not aware of such an instruction from law enforcement. I think they are best placed in responding to that aspect.
Fair enough, Mr. Mhaga. Are you going to be opposing bail of all the suspects?
This case will be treated or dealt with on its own merit, Kathy, because remember, in respect of a bail application, the prosecutor will be seized with the evidence from law enforcement and he will evaluate all the facts and make that determination whether to adopt a stance that says bail will be opposed or not. But that decision will be informed by evidence that is before that prosecutor. I cannot sit here and say bail will be opposed in respect of a particular case because I don't have the facts. That prosecutor will be seized with the matter and have all the facts.
Is this something that you're discussing as the National Prosecuting Authority with the President?
Not at all.
So all of the decisions are coming strictly out of the National Prosecuting Authority?
We have prosecutorial independence when it comes to institution of charges, when it comes to prosecutorial decision making.
All right. Advocate Mthunzi Mhaga, let me thank you so much for your time. I'm having a bad day with your name, Mthunzi, because we haven't chatted in so long. Great to have you. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Mthunzi Mhaga there, and he is with the National Prosecuting Authority. So there you have a sense then of how authorities intend to respond to this moment that we are in. Charges, as you heard, over 1,000 people arrested. Is this something that is likely to be opposed, in particular by civil society groups, when it comes to the number of arrests that have been effected? That's something that we'll have to wait and see with the passage of time.